Hi, this is Bill Cates again. With me today is Leo Pusateri. Leo Pusateri is the president of Pusateri International, a sales and consulting firm he founded in 1992 in beautiful Buffalo. That's his words, not mine. Leo has a universal, timeless message and employs a narrow yet very deep strategy in the financial services industry. Leo's unique value proposition says it all. His company empowers organizations and individuals to discover and articulate their unique value. His clients are a who's who list in the global financial service world. They are international private wealth consultants, national and regional brokerage firms, mutual fund companies, money management firms, insurance companies, and banks primarily in the U.S., Canada, and U.K. And he is also trained in Europe, Latin America, and Asia. Leo's passion is helping financial entrepreneurs like you go from good to great to extraordinary to ultimately becoming their best in representing the single most compelling story they have to present. That is, their individual or team story of the value they provide to their clients. Knowing what I know about Leo's work, he provides real value and he changes people's lives. Welcome to the show, Leo.
Thanks, Bill. It's great to talk to you again.
Great to have you with us again. Let's just jump right into it here. You know, Leo, it's been my experience that most financial professionals are not very good at understanding and articulating their value to their clients, to centers of influence, etc. Why do you think that is?
Well, I believe there's three reasons, Bill. When you think of a lot of these advisors that you and I come into contact with every day, there are many of them that are very committed, very dedicated, very serious about taking their business forward. And what I found, number one, think about a lot of these folks that come into the business. They usually go through some type of training, and then they're sent out. And they go out in the world, and what happens is, number two, if they've got a good branch manager or someone that they're reporting to, may be committed to their continued professional development and helping them, they'll get the help. But if not, they might be left on their own. What I'm finding today is a lot of people, a lot of the organizations are so committed, very compliance sensitive, trying to help people technically, understanding different themes around wealth management and things like this, that sometimes some of the core selling skills, some of the core consultative techniques of really differentiating yourself are left behind unless somebody's really committed to take it forward. So, that's what I'm finding. And third is if those people, unfortunately, many of them out there, they end up being what I call the proud and plateaued. They're doing well. They seem to be getting by. They're making enough money. They got the life that they want. So some people just aren't taking it to the next level. But those people that do are the ones that obviously that our message really, really resonates with, and those are the ones that we're trying to do business with on a day-to-day basis.
And I like that term, proud and plateaued. In fact, I was doing a coaching program earlier today, and I had one financial advisor on the phone who was kind of proud and plateaued, and he thought of all the reasons why he shouldn't go to the next level, and that's okay. But you're right. If you're in a growth mode, if you want to attract better, higher quality clients, if you want to win more high quality business, then you need to know this work. One of the terms you use that I really like is the term black belt. Someone needs to be a black belt in talking about their value. Why do you believe that's important for someone?
Well, I use words like black belt interchangeably with world class, Top Gun, Navy SEAL, Army Ranger, All-Pro, a concert pianist. It doesn't matter. Anybody who's really phenomenal at what they do and are really committed to being their best. You mentioned it quite well, Bill, in your introduction, that the single most compelling story is the story of these advisors and the value that they represent to their clients. And if you think of that changing client that's out there, all those people that they're trying to do business with, people are more informed, they got greater choices, they're more enlightened, they're more sophisticated, they want to know what they're paying for and what they're getting. They can bypass the traditional only game in town suppliers. They're less swayed by marketing gimmickry. They're more selective, and boy, do they have a lot of competitive options. So with all these competitive options, it's caused this real dilemma in the marketplace today. And everybody looks the same, talks the same, smells the same, as I say it in my workshops. And you're challenged to stand out. You're challenged to do whatever you can to take it to black belt level of distinction. And so that's part of the term that we use, and it's a concept that we build into our programs and challenge people. They start to get it. When you hear things like black belt, world class, they start to say, geez, this is really interesting. Am I that good? How would people describe me? And when you start having people rate themselves based on how well they do distinguish themselves, it usually causes some ahas, and we take the program forward.
Right. I know I've heard you talk many times, and you and I have talked about this a lot privately, and you talk about when a financial professional, or as you like to say, financial entrepreneur, is in front of a high-level prospect. This prospect may be interviewing 2 or 3 other financial advisors, and they're all probably winging it. So because very few people do what you teach, unfortunately. So if a financial pro goes in there and having an ability to understand and articulate his or her value, he or she should really stand out and really increase their chances of winning that business. And I suspect you have tons of evidence to that case.
Yeah, no question, Bill. We've got tons of evidence, both qualitatively and quantitatively. Qualitatively are like the emotional examples. I'm a big proponent that business is first a meeting of the hearts, and then business becomes a meeting of the mind. So when we put people through our program, many times it challenges people, and it has some type of an emotional impact. I never thought about my business like this, or I'm trying to do something to change my life, or I think I'm in the wrong position, or I want a little bit more peace of mind, I want a little bit more balance, and I'm not getting it. And those quantitative things sometimes are where advisors are saying, I want to take this thing forward. I want to increase my assets. I need to advance my revenues. There's a lot of different things, Bill, that we run into with this model. But, we're not training robots. We don't do it in any type of fashion like that. We want people to understand that they bring something to the table. And it's our challenge through the correct introspection. I believe you've heard me say this before, where it's like you're pulling a zipper down on your chest and you're reaching in and touching someone's heart and their soul to try to determine with them, what is this compelling message? Where's the confidence? Where's the passion? Where's the speed in the delivery of this? But it's got to be done in a highly consultative way. So, you're listening, you're asking great questions, but you have this feeling like you can open up this filing drawer cabinet with information that really distinguishes you on call, on demand when you need it. And those are the types of things we work on.
Well, good. Let's get into some of the things you work on and make sure that people come away from this program with some sense of what they can do a little bit differently. And obviously, if they like what you have to say, we can give them some way of contacting you later. But you have what you call the value ladder in your book, an audio program, Mirror, Mirror on the Wall. You articulate the value ladder. And so I think there are 7 steps, if I'm not mistaken. So let's go through each one briefly so the people listening can get a sense of the work they need to do on their own and or with you to make sure they articulate this in a black belt fashion.
Sure, that'd be great, Bill.
So the first one would be?
The first one, and I would encourage listeners, Bill, if they had a blank piece of paper, just to draw out a ladder with 7 rungs on the ladder. And we're going to start at the bottom of this. There's 7 questions, as you mentioned. And on the left-hand side, I'll quickly review the questions with you one at a time. And on the right-hand side is what we call the rationale, or what those changing, sophisticated, competitively optioned clients are looking for when they ask this question. So the first question is, who are you? Simple as it sounds. And on the far right, people want to know about your background. It's just one word. And a lot of times I get a lot of advisors in the program, Bill, and they say, geez, I know this stuff. This is not that tough. But try asking them to write it out on a flip chart. Go up to the wall and tell me what you really emphasize. Where's the precision in your language? You only get one chance to make a great first impression. What are the things that you really emphasize? What's part of your lexicon? In my particular opening, I might talk about beautiful buffalo. You were kidding with your introduction there, but it's something that I use. I use words about specialization and partner and unique and things like this. And I believe through this phase, the first question of the program is designed, it's almost like the beginning of a self-actualization process. You're really digging in, you're opening up your heart and soul and saying, am I taking things for granted just in the way I'm quickly introducing myself? What do I want people to walk away and remember? And that's where the ride up the ladder starts, Bill. Right. Who are you and background?
Now, quick question before we go to the next rung. Some people listening to this program are sole practitioners. They're in it by themselves. Some of them are members of partnerships or teams. Is this somewhat, let's say if you're part of a team, do you do this just for yourself? Do you do it with the team and then do it for yourself? How does that dynamic work?
Well, if if you're part of a team, it's a phenomenal exercise, especially as you continue to climb up further steps of this ladder to see how your team members are answering questions. And then I always encourage people, try to answer them for yourself first, and then come into your team setting and start to share information. And it's almost like you've got a big screwdriver going into this program, and you start to tighten up answers with each other. And you'll see this as we continue to climb, the real power in this for team members, especially as it gets into talking about things like, what is your value, what are your core beliefs, what's your process, how would you work with me? It really comes alive in a team setting.
All right, so who are we, or who we are, and then what's the next one?
Well, the next one is what do you do? 4 simple words. What do you do? And to the far right, we talk about having a unique value proposition. And what that means, it's a short statement or a paragraph that clearly and concisely captures the essence of what would differentiate you from your competition. And this is a fascinating part of the program early on, Bill, when you start asking people, what's the unique value of your company? What's the unique value of the solutions that you folks offer? What's the unique value of what your team provides? What's the unique value that you individually provide? It's like putting all these key words into this big blender and shaking them up, and you start putting them up on a flip chart, and you get people to really start netting it out. It's like, look at me eyeball to eyeball. What is it that you do? What is your value? Don't hesitate. Don't pause. Just look at me and give me a black belt response. And that's what the what do you do stage is all about. It's funny, kiddingly, Bill, many people have come up to me and said, well, what exactly do you do, Leo? And, well, I have a 11-word unique value proposition for my own company that says empowering organizations and individuals to discover and articulate their unique value. But many times just having fun with people being in the role is they'll say, well, what do you do? And I say, well, I actually help people just like yourself answer that very same question for yourself with increased confidence, passion, and speed. And it's such a simple question of life, but so many people wing it. They just don't have this down pat. And that's what the second question really starts to focus on.
Right. Now, you use the 3 words, confidence, passion, and speed, and I think everyone understands about confidence and how that comes through in the words you choose and the dynamic of your voice and your body language, and passion as well. But speed, I know you don't mean talking faster. Tell us what you mean by speed.
Speed is defined in our program as the lack of hesitation in response. And you're right, it's not quickness of speech. It is if someone asks you, Bill, in a competitive situation, well, Bill, how is your referral program different from someone else? What makes you different versus this person? How does the solution or the approach and the way you teach something different? If you're from a financial organization, someone asks about a certain type of investment program or some estate planning or some other part of the wealth management equation. How is your company different? How does this approach different? What can I expect from working with people like yourself? It's the lack of hesitation in responding to critical questions that would distinguish you. And you can feel it, Bill, when you're with somebody. You can look in their eyes. You get a sense of who's on top of their game. Another way I've described that is like you get a smile in your stomach. And the smile in your stomach is when someone's asking you a question, you're prepared, you're confident, as you described earlier. Passion is that people can feel that light within you. They can feel this energy, this spirit, this enthusiasm. And the speed is the ability just to knock it off, knock the battery off my shoulder here, but you can do it without hesitating.
Yeah, when you hem and haw and trying to, as you say, wing it, think of it on the fly, it just doesn't create the same impact.
Exactly.
I love the next one. In fact, I found that the next rung, the third one, to my mind, and everyone's different, I'm sure, is probably one of the most powerful ones, and the ones that a prospect or a potential center of influence won't necessarily ask you consciously, but if you enter it into the conversation on your own, if you interject it into the conversation, it carries a lot of power, and that would be what?
Why do you do what you do? And to the far right, your business beliefs. And the reason it is powerful, Bill, is that it's like I'm pounding on my chest right now. You can't hear my heart pulsating, but you see business beliefs that come out of your heart. They're strong convictions that you have about the way you're doing your business. And it's interesting, I've coached a lot of advisors that have said, well, they don't really ask me the question like this. I said, well, it comes up in different ways. Let's talk about that. It's another concept we call trigger questions. There are other ways that people ask you questions about, how long have you been in the business, Bill? What have you really learned? What have been some of the key takeaways from your experiences in working with people like myself? What's driving your thinking today? And it's real interesting because this business belief part of the program is so emotional. I'll even start out programs nowadays just to get them to think about what I'm talking about. I'll say, how many of you are moms or dads here in the audience? Give me a raise of hands, and we'll start going through this. I said, what's one of the key things that you really believe that makes a great dad or a great mom? And it's funny when you ask them things like this, well, I believe you need to listen to your kids, or I believe you need to treat them all the same or different or whatever else people come up with. You can start to feel the emotion. And so when you start translating this to a business discussion about, well, geez, Bill, you're managing wealth for people just like myself. What are some of your strong beliefs about managing wealth today? Well, I believe that everyone needs to have this plan, or I believe that everyone needs to take a holistic view of this, or I believe that everybody, when they're going through this, needs a real solid approach to asset allocation. Everybody's got different types of beliefs, and that's what makes this section so powerful. They're a lot of times your thoughts, Bill, of what's driving your thinking about different things. And when there's alignment of your beliefs, and another way of looking at this is your philosophies about the way you do your business, about the way you manage money, about the way that you manage wealth, things like this start to resonate with other people. And you can start to see just these first three questions. Hey, who are you? I know you now. I like you, too. What do you do? What's your value? Oh, I got an understanding what you're proposing to me. And number three, why do you do this stuff? What's driving your thinking? Oh, you know what? Philosophically, we're connected. And one of the great ways for advisors going through this third question is ask somebody else philosophically how they feel about managing their wealth or some of the decisions they've made in the past. It'll start to open up your own file drawer, and you'll be able to give some real black belt responses.
I'll tell you, Leo, I know when I've used this particular one, I'll interject it. I won't wait for them to ask it. And in the middle of a response to something else, just like a good politician will do, you see on the talk shows, I'll say, let me tell you why I do what I do. And I just noticed that the dynamic of that individual changes. Their facial expression change, sometimes their body language change, and it just, you're right, it hits them in a way that the other stuff doesn't hit them. In fact, everyone on the call, I'm sure, has heard the term sales is a transfer of enthusiasm. I think that's true if you're selling automobiles or copiers. But I think when it comes to whether it's insurance, risk management, whether it's managing wealth or anything in between, I think it's really a transfer of belief in doing the right thing for oneself, one's family, one's business, and I think that's where you really connect with people. So let's go to the next rung. Number 4 is?
How do you do what you do? How do you do what you do? And to the far right, it's process. The process is a real distinguishing factor in a relationship. Imagine being in a competitive situation, Bill, and someone, walking up those first 3 steps, know you, understand your value, understand philosophically where you're coming from and things. How would we work together? Where would we go from here? What's your methodology? I was talking to one of your competitors, and they said they would go about partnering with me in this fashion. What should I expect from you in terms of, what's next? Do you have a process? Could you go to a flip chart, as I challenge a lot of financial entrepreneurs, and say, just illustrate it, draw it out for me. Show me what it is that you do. And do you have your doctorate in this thing called process? Meaning, do you know all the steps? Do you understand all the things you do for people at each of those steps? You be able to understand the real benefit or what might differentiate the things that you do at each of those steps? And are there ways that you can break it, make it even stronger? This is a real distinguishing opportunity for you. And process is a real opportunity to bring comfort to people. It's a great way of building trust. If you think about scenarios that you've been involved in, when someone says, yeah, I've got 5 steps, here's how we do it, they can enumerate it like they can with their business beliefs and things. People can see that other folks are prepped, they're on top of their game, they thought about this, they're not winging it, they know what to expect in terms of if they were to give you the $1 million or sign up for this major insurance solution or whatever else it might be. They know what's going on, and they can feel comforted in terms of knowing that you've got a process that you adhere to.
And I would think you would agree with me, Leo, that anytime you can illustrate this process graphically, whether it's a circle, a triangle, a flow, a list of numbers, any kind of graphic illustration probably makes a big difference.
Huge difference. And on top of that, naming it something. I always say to people, what do you name the baby? I've got 4 kids, and I relate the scenario of naming kids. No different. This is your intellectual property. This is your baby. This is something that you own and should be very proud of in discussing this with other folks. So come up and brand it in your own unique way, whatever way your firm or your compliance department will allow you to do certain things. But take it to the next level.
Yeah, and I'm sure in some cases some people have to call it what their company calls it, and if they're independent, they can call it whatever they want.
Exactly.
So this is good stuff. In the interest of time, we do need to keep going. We are now at the fifth one would be what?
Who have you done it for? To the far right, client successes. And we ask a quote here, or we share a quote, and it says, how well do you really know your clients? And so this one is interesting, Bill, because it forces financial entrepreneurs who are going through the program to look at their clients in a different way. We first start with an emotional connection, say, how well do you really know these folks in terms of their issues? They've got challenges, they've got circumstances impacting their decisions, they've got concerns, they've got frustrations, they've got needs, they've got opportunities, they've got problems, things like this. So we go through a listing of top clients and we start saying, well, what are some of the dominant or key emotional issues that are impacting these folks right now? And then what solutions have you provided these folks? Are they all financial solutions? Has there been any other types of solutions that may have helped in your relationship? And ultimately, what's the real value, which we're going to attend to in a couple of other steps here, but it really forces them to think about the relationships and in what way have they really impacted them. We start to begin that thought process right here.
And would this be also potentially their ideal client profile or their niche, or to say we work with folks who have retired successfully, or we work with young families just getting started? I mean, that's where that sort of stuff would come into play, correct?
Yes, Bill. This module brings all of that interesting information out, ideal client profiles, really describing them, some other ways of looking, trying to assess if you were to call some of your top clients and ask questions like, why did you decide to do business with me when you made the big decision? What is it that you value most about our working relationship? What's the real value that we provided to you? And so I challenge participants to say, how well do you really know these people? And really extend it in terms of knowing other influential people, those center of influences in people's lives, and just challenging them to take it up a notch to do this. A couple key questions here, Bill. I always ask them, I said, what is your reputational value? How do people talk about you when you leave? And are you convinced that your clients are convinced that you add this thing called value? And it really forces people to think a little bit differently about that fifth question.
Another question, number 6, would be what?
What makes you different? And we talk about differentiation on the far right. And we explain differentiation, Bill, in 3 ways. We call it the umbrella of distinction. And if you can picture an umbrella, let's say it's a rainy day in Baltimore, and at the bottom of that umbrella is that handle. You press a button and that umbrella goes up, right? Can you visualize the spokes holding up that umbrella, keeping you dry? Well, at the top of that umbrella that would represent your company. And those spokes would represent your solutions holding up that umbrella. And holding the umbrella is you. So you need to be black belt in being able to distinguish yourself in those 3 ways. We've actually come up with a concept we call differentiation 3x5. And what I do, it's almost like a 3x5 card. If you can think about, well, geez, Bill, what makes your company different? And give me those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things. Or what makes your solutions different? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And what makes you different, or your team different, or your core values, or what we should expect, or what you stand for, what we should expect from working with you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we get people trying to visualize that and to fill in the blanks. And then for many more strategic, select, or significant competitive scenarios, we get into other types of exercises that force people to learn how to play strategic chess, to understand your uniqueness, understand your competitive advantages, understand issues of parity, understand other things that competitors do where they're advantaged over you, and things that competitors have in a unique format that you don't even have. Gets into a little bit more involvement there as we get into some tougher, more strategic, competitive scenarios.
This is good stuff. And the last one, probably the ultimate question that needs to be asked and answered would be,
why should I do business with you? And to the far right, what's the real value? It's not your value proposition. It's how your proposition has been actualized. I need to know the real impact. We started in question 5 with client success. It's getting you thinking about this. But in what way, Bill, through your solutions, the value that you provided me, based on the needs I've described to you, in what way have they had either a qualitative or emotional impact on me, or a quantitative or a logical type of some impact on me. Remember, business a meeting of the hearts, then it becomes a meeting of the minds. So how have you really made a difference? Have you helped someone to grow their assets, help them to retire sooner, help them through the correct utilization of insurance and an estate planning approach to really save them thousands and thousands of dollars? I mean, what have you really done that's provided value in a different way that can be measured, that can be looked at as becoming something more tangible or actualized? And that's what this last question is all about. And a lot of times, Bill, I'll tell people, I say, look in some of those previous drawers. Go back to question number one, background. What's the real value of your background? Well, geez, Leo, I've been into business all these years. I got all this experience. I'm a real niche player. We really focus on these types of things. How about in your process? Is there any real value associated with the comprehensive things that you do for people? Well, sure there is. How about in some of those client success stories? Talk to me about some of the ways that you've aligned your solutions to help people. And what about differentiation, some of the things? What stands out there? So real value is an interesting question that you learn through intuition as well as good skill utilization of how to come up with good answers on the spot to control a dialogue, to answer clients' questions with respect, but also exhibiting the highest levels of confidence, passion, and speed.
That's great. So what I like to do is just read them out and make a comment before we move on to some other ideas. Who we are, what we do, why we do what we do, how we do what we do, who have we done it for, what makes us different, and why you should do business with us. And I got to tell you, Leo, and everyone listening, I took these and I used these as the template for some of the copy on my website and the brochure, and it's all the answers or all the questions that we need to answer. And so for anybody listening, just use these. If you need to write copy, the answers to these questions will help you come up with really, really good copy. One thing I want to kind of move on to something. I want to cover this in another show, but I'd like you to give us a little teaser, if you will. You are now starting to work on the 8th rung of this ladder. We have the 7th. You've done incredible work with people on that. But now we got the 8th one coming in. Just give me a little executive briefing on that.
The briefing is this. If you don't know your value, you can't price your value. If you can't price your value, you can't sell your value. I call it pricing with integrity and feeling like you're really going forward in your chair with respect and feeling confident that you can have a disclosure opportunity, a conversation around your fees and feeling really, really, really good about it.
Pricing your value. That's a great one. Leo, we are running short of time, but I want to make sure that people listening to the show have a way of contacting you if they'd like to learn a little more about what you do and how you do it and how you might be able to help them. Can you give us a little bit of contact information?
Our phone number here in beautiful Buffalo is 716-631-9860. Our email, they can email me, anybody, anytime, Leo, just Leo, at pusateri.consulting.com. And again, that's Pusateri, Pusateri. Or our website is pusateri.consulting.com. They can reach us there. And I would just end, Bill, with reminding people that we empower organizations and individuals to discover, to articulate their unique value. We do it in the form of some organizational initiatives. We work with many clients in a workshop or seminar mode. We deliver keynotes, and we have an extraordinary coaching program that helps people who truly want to be black belt in distinguishing themselves based on the value they provide.
Great, Leo. As always, a pleasure having you. You always have some great things to share with our audience. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bill. Great to talk to you. My best.
Well, this has been Bill Cates. I hope you enjoyed this program. I just want to remind you about our email newsletter, the Referral Minute. It is free. Several times a month, you'll get a great tip on how to get more referrals. It'll keep you aware of referrals. It'll give you actionable ideas. And also you can bounce back and ask me questions and share your success stories. To subscribe to the Referral Minute and to learn all about the various tools, products, articles, courses, all the things that we offer, many of them free, just go to referralcoach.com. That's www.referralcoach.com. And I'll see you next time on Pro Web Radio.